feel like people are very distracted by the war and they're not paying attention to a lot of other things that are going on. Of course, our attention is very much, we're all concerned about the starvation and the bombs that continue. So a lot of people have been distracted from their normal daily routine. And a lot of the writers in this book have told me themselves that they haven't been able to do a lot of creative work during this period. In fact, I was on a tour in the U.S., as you know, and the last city that I hit was New York City with Omar El-Akkad, who, of course, he wrote the novel American War and What Strange Paradise. And he said that he's been unable to continue working on his third novel because of the war.
Hi friends, this is Read and Write with Natasha podcast. My name is Natasha Tynes and I'm an author and a journalist. In this channel, I talk about the writing life, review books, and interview authors. Hope you enjoy the journey. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. I have with me today Jordan Elgrably. I hope I pronounced this right. Jordan is a Franco-American and Moroccan writer and translator whose stories and creative nonfiction have appeared in numerous anthologies and reviews, including Apollo, Salamagundi, and the Paris Review. He is the editor of Stories from the Center of the World, New Middle East Fiction, and co-editor with Malu Halasa of Smood, a new Palestinian reader. And he, El-Grabi, founded and edits the Markaz Review and divides his time between Montpellier and California. So, Jordan, so nice to meet you. And for full transparency, one of my short stories is included in Stories from the Center of the World. So, Jordan, thank you for joining me today. I'm so happy to have you here today. I think my first question, Jordan, is if you can tell us a bit about the collection of short stories and what inspired you to create this.
Well, yes. Let me just pull my copy down here from the shelf. I've been working in Arab arts and cultures in the U.S. and France for 25 years. And there are 25 short stories in here, including one by yourself and one by me and so forth. And these are stories that were originally published in the Markaz Review, of course. And there's a diversity among the writers. Some of them live in Lebanon or Egypt or other places. Some of them are in the UK, some in the US, some in other countries. But I think there's a common thread through all of these stories, which is that these writers are speaking in their own terms, and not trying to be anything that they're not. Now, what they are is typically bicultural or multicultural. These writers are often speak 2, 3, 4 languages, and quite often they're not American or British, but they are masters of the English language, which I find very interesting. Take this Jordanian writer named Natasha Tynes. She's from Amman and has been in the U.S. since she was, 20 or 25. When did you come to the U.S.?
I was almost 30, like maybe 28. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So how is it that you came to write in English? Was that a choice that you made once you came over, or? I
already had an audience in English back in Jordan because I had a column in an English newspaper, and I used to work for an English newspaper. So it was an easy decision to make. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have no special claim to fame. My father was an immigrant, and I was born in Los Angeles, so I grew up with English as a mother tongue.
Do you speak Arabic, Jordan?
La is the short answer.
That's okay. So Jordan, now there's a lot of, let's say, interest in Arab and Arab American and Palestinian stories specifically because of what's happening in the region. And what was the overall reaction to the book, since it came at this, very particular time, and during this conflict that's still happening now.
Well, the book just came out less than a month ago, and the war on Gaza is officially still not over. But this book is almost like a book. It's a cultural collection. It's about the arts. It's not a book about war per se, although a lot of the stories are by people who've been affected by various wars, including the Lebanese civil war, and there's some Palestinian stories that deal with the occupation. But I would say so far the jury is out. We don't know yet what the reaction is. I feel like people are very distracted by the war, and they're not paying attention to a lot of other things that are going on. Of course, our attention is very much, we're all concerned about the starvation and the bombs that continue. So a lot of people have been distracted from their normal daily routine. And a lot of the writers in this book have told me themselves that they haven't been able to do a lot of creative work during this period.
Interesting.
In fact, I was on a tour in the U.S., as you know, and the last city that I hit was New York City with Omar El-Akkad, who, of course, he wrote the novel American War and What Strange Paradise. And he said that he's been unable to continue working on his third novel because of the war. And also he expressed a sense of almost betrayal. His parents are Egyptian. He was raised in Qatar and Canada. And he made a choice to, become an English language writer. He didn't have to. And, when he explained to us that when he saw the way that Palestinian lives were so devalued and dehumanized, he almost felt betrayed, or he questioned his devotion and his identity as an English language writer. And, feeling as if the countries that host him, Canada and the U.S., have basically shown him that his life as an Arab Muslim writer isn't quite as valuable as maybe he thought.
Interesting. So you think Arab American writers in general now are too traumatized to put this, these thoughts and feelings into creative work?
It depends. Some people are writing a lot, and some are writing not at all. It's different for everyone. I feel more engagé than ever before, and of course, I'm not ethnically Palestinian. My grandparents were from Morocco. Nonetheless, I can identify with the anxiety, the stress, and the drama that's happening there. And I'm not frozen. I mean, I feel like I have as much work to do as I ever did.
So, okay, I just want to pivot a bit and ask you about your selection process. So, as an editor, you get a lot of pitches or submissions, both to, let's say, to your publication and Marcus Review, and also you're now selecting books to be included in an anthology. So let's start first with when people send you a submission. So, like, for example, I know you have this deadline coming up soon for your summer edition, and I want to submit a story. I guess I have 10 days left. And so what would you make what would you like? What tips would you give me now if I want to submit the story? What should I avoid before you reject me or reject the submission?
Well, first of all, hurry up.
Yeah. Okay. I'll start today, I promise.
Imshi, you gotta get in the groove. Yeah, if you haven't written the story yet, I don't know if you're going to make it, but
come on, of course I can make it. It's all in here.
Yes, well, if it's any of the stories that you told us in Washington, I'm sure that the story about what was you threw something out in the trash.
I have a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay. I think writing with humor is helpful today. I found that when I was on this tour, a lot of the stories in the book are quite serious, But the only ones that I felt like reading were the funny ones, because people were already so earnest and almost some, not depressed, but they were not in the best of moods. So the humorous stories worked better. But as far as the submissions goes, I don't have any special advice. If you're serious about writing, you'll write and you'll submit your work for publication. And if you're not serious about it, then you won't. I'm not sure anything I can say can help you.
So, okay, I'm sure you rejected stories before. Why did you reject them?
Oh, we have to reject a lot of stories. We feel like they're not complete. They're not finished, or maybe it's the subject matter doesn't interest us. It has nothing to do with our particular niche, which is the Middle East, North Africa, and those diaspora communities from about Pakistan and Afghanistan to North Africa, Morocco. And sometimes we get stories that have absolutely nothing to do with any of that. So we have to turn them down. We receive stories from India and East Asia, and I'm not sure why, but we're not including Indian stories. It's just not our thing.
I see. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about not the Arab literature per se, but the Arab American literature, right? So now which is good news, there's a push for diversity in publishing, especially in the US. They're always looking for diverse writers, own voices, and all of that. Where do we stand when it comes to Arab American literature, and how are agents and publishers responding to submissions by Arab American writers?
Well, look, let's take the example, the rare example of Omar El-Akkad in his book, American War. He got a tremendous advance for that book. Publishers are always looking for a great novel. And although it's harder for somebody with an Arab last name to break through, if the work is really good, they can do it. But I would say in a general way, and I hate to generalize, but if you have an Arab last name, or you have a name that sounds Muslim or whatever, American agents and publishers are probably going to be a little bit reticent or skeptical. They're not used to finding the diamond in the rough. They're not used to, they think that Salman Rushdie or Omar El-Akkad is like the rare shooting star that they have to catch. In other words, there's not a very high expectations that writers from our part of the world are going to show up with, great works. But that's their blind spot, because there is a lot of work. Some of it has to be translated from Arabic and Persian and other languages. But if you're talking about the landscape for Middle Eastern writers in the U.S., I think it's expanded a lot in the last 20 years since 9/11. Now, are those writers making a living at their work, and are they highly paid? Honestly, I think those who are, I can name them on two hands maybe. I would include Omar El-Akkad, obviously. I would include Ayad Akhtar. His family were from Pakistan. His novel was Homeland Elegies. His play was Disgrace, which won the Pulitzer Prize. An Iranian American playwright, a woman, whose name escapes me, also won a Pulitzer Prize for her play, I think in either this year or last year. So, there's a beginning of a movement almost. There also have been a number of anthologies that talk about bicultural identity. I know that there's been 2 or 3 anthologies by Iranian American writers. Persis Karim edited one of those. And there have been a couple of anthologies of Arab American stories, and there are a few anthologies of Arab American plays. In fact, our next issue coming out in 2 days is devoted to theater. We have put together a list of our top, our picks for the best theater books, which are, plays and short plays and monologues and books about Middle Eastern theater. And so there's 3 or 4 books already that have come out that include plays by Arab American and Iranian American writers. So I think we're closer to the beginning than the middle of this story. And I don't really have a crystal ball, but I can say this, that Omar El-Akkad's novel, American War, was so good that it convinced the publishers to really invest in it. He got an enormous advance for that book, and then he made royalties afterwards. The book sold a lot of copies. And he's still a very humble person, but he's had this incredible success. It didn't happen quite the same way with the second novel, What Strange Paradise, but it was also, I thought that was quite a good novel. And it'll be interesting to see what he does next. But, there's also Diana Abu Jaber, who's also a Jordanian American writer, now lives in Florida, I believe. She's had some success. Her first novel was Arab Jazz, and she's published several other novels. And she's been around for 20 years, at least.
You said something that I'd never heard before, which is saying, well, I heard it, but not in that context, right? So yes, there are push for diversity, but there's still worry of Arab last names or Muslim last names. Do you think that's different from, let's say, an Asian American or a Hispanic American or like any other minorities? Do you think other minorities would get a higher chance in publishing than Arab Americans because, 9/11 and the repercussions of that?
Look, I think agents and publishers, whether they understand it or not, are a little bit biased. They expect great things from white writers. They don't have high expectations for minority writers. And that, again, I'm generalizing, but like I know one Latina writer. Well, she's half Latina, and so her last name is a Mexican last name. Mm. But she wrote a book about famous New York American woman of the theater. And it was the first biography of this person, which you would think, because she was very important in the history of acting in Hollywood and New York theater. That book would have been, gotten a good advance and so forth. But I think because her last name was Mexican, she didn't get the advance that somebody else would. I think there's still at play. There's some racism that people who are in the publishing business don't even really see themselves. They can't see the forest from the trees. However, there's been a whole crop of Asian American writers who've been very successful. Amy Tan is the best known one, but there are many others. Yeah. Just Chen is doing well. Obviously, Viet Nguyen with his novels, The Sympathizer and The Committed, he's doing extremely well. He's got a TV series. So there are all these breakthroughs happening. I think it's really hard to generalize, but I think we discussed this. The New York Times did a survey of almost all of the novels published from the 50s until about 5 years ago, and they found that something like 97% of them were by white writers. So 3% were by minority writers, and so the publishing industry, it was a wake-up call. This article was published, the survey was published in the New York Times in 2020, so just 4 years ago. So maybe since that point, editors and readers and agents are a little bit more aware of their bias and are trying to look for other ideas, other kinds of writers.
So how do publications like Al-Markaz Review or other Arab American journals, which there are not many of them, try to kind of break the stereotypes or maybe change the appetite of readers so that they can read more Arab American literature?
Well, we publish, the best writers that we can consistently. So if readers find the Markaz Review, then they're going to find quality writing. Our standard is the New Yorker. We want the quality of what we're publishing to be as good as what you find there. It just so happens that all of the writers are from an Arab culture, or from Iran, or from Turkey, or from that whole region. But other than that, they write about whatever they want. We don't dictate subject matter. We publish reviews, we publish fiction, and we publish a lot of nonfiction essays.
So what do you think the future holds for, I know, you can't predict the future, but what do you hope the future would hold for Al-Markaz Review? Where do you see it going?
Well, we are already working in a particular direction. We curated this book here, Stories from the Center of the World, and we curated the next one, Samud, a new Palestinian reader that's coming out in just 5 months. And our Arabic editor, Mohammed Rabieh, who's Egyptian, has 4 novels out. One of them has been published in a few languages called Otared, Otared. It's a dystopian crime novel. He has put together an anthology of the best Arab short stories that he's found in Arabic that we are translating into English. So that's, we're curating different books. So the future for the Markaz Review is to continue to publish online, but also to publish, anthologies that we curate and we partner with other publishers. So, if you're a publisher, if you're an agent, you can look to the Markaz Review to discover new writers. Maybe you have a collection of short stories that you're editing, and that somebody would see one of your stories in the Markaz Review and go, oh, well, maybe she's got more of these.
I do, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of stories. An example is our Arabic translator, Rana Asfour, who's also from Jordan and is based again now in Amman. She translated a story. Well, she translated an excerpt from the first novel by a Libyan writer named Muhammad Al-Nas, and because his story appeared in the Markaz Review, a French publisher saw the story, liked it, and then bought the rights to publish his novel in France.
Oh, wow.
And so, publishers are beginning to look at our content to look for potential books and deals to make.
So are you publicizing these success stories?
Well,
I think the more people read about them, the more, they realize that there's an appetite for this.
Well, yes. In fact, I should tell our publicist, we have a book publicist who's helping with this book collection of stories and others. And, I should mention that to her. I don't think I have, but that's one among a few examples. So, we're not really good at publicity. We're not as slick as the New Yorker in terms of marketing. We don't have the budget they do. One of the big problems with the Markaz Review is insufficient, means. We have enough money to be able to pay writers for their work when we publish them, but we don't have very much money for, making slick videos and doing, a lot of marketing. So, it's almost like to find us is a matter of luck, not a matter of, we have this TikTok video that went viral. We don't have any viral videos as yet. So how do you find out about the Markaz Review? How did you find out about it?
Through Rana, through social media. I saw some of Rana's posts. I didn't know Rana before. And I reached out to her. I told her, looks like we have a lot in common, and that was it. And then she reached out to me and asked me to submit a story. And so for me, it was through Instagram, through other people. So like a strategy for you is to partner with Arab or Middle Eastern influencers who have a lot of social media following, and they can spread the word. And some of them, like Omar El-Akkad and others, they have tons of followers, or like Fadi Zaghmout and others, and they can really help spread the word. So that would be like you would have an Arab writer with the book talking about it, or a copy of Al-Markaz Review, and this is how you can, because people trust names more than brands. So if Fadi says read this, I would read this, then suddenly I would see Markaz Review and I don't know what it is about.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, there are writers like Yusuf Raha in Cairo, Fadi Zaghmout, Mansoura Ezzeldin, Salar Abdo. There's a number of writers, Iranian and Arab writers, who are well known, have a following, and who we have published. We've published their translations, so yeah, they that's how people find out about us often.
Did you get any reviews on this book? What was the reaction?
We have only had what is considered trade reviews so far. The book hasn't received like an official review in like one of the literary reviews, such as the Los Angeles Review of Books or the New York Review of Books. And we need those. And the truth is that it's, there are a lot of books that come out, and it's not guaranteed that every book is going to be well reviewed. We try to review as many books as we can. We need more reviewers. We need good reviewers. So the best way to break into the Marquaz review is to write a good book review. A good book review is an essay. It's a review. It's what I call a review essay, where where there's kind of an idea behind it. There's an argument that the writer is making. It isn't just like a book report. Oh, here's what the book is about. No, we don't. We're not even asking you to tell us so much. What's the plot of the book, or what's the what are the details of the book, but to
Well, I read somewhere, and I interviewed some people on the podcast who mentioned that what really moves the needle when it comes to book publishing is no longer a review in the New Yorker or the New York Times. It's ironically TikTok or social media. This is what's selling books now, unlike what it used to be. So a review in the New York
TikTok.
Yeah.
Are people making TikTok videos about books?
Oh yeah. I mean, for example, you can say Colleen Hoover, who's a famous romance writer. She's like one of now. I think her book sales exceeded Stephen King. It all started because some TikTokers picked up her books and they started making viral videos about them. So now what is actually moving the needle when it comes to book sales is no longer those reviews because it's a very niche market for people who are actually willing to pay for the New York Times, to pay for the paywall, to go or the New Yorker and others. It's very niche, but it's not moving the needle. And that's my understanding from many authors and publishers I talked to on this podcast. So even the market is shifting towards how you're selling books these days, to the degree that some agents or publishers would not even take you on if you don't, as an individual, if you don't have a big social media following, even if you're, the next Shakespeare, even if your book is amazing. If they look and you see you have 5 followers on Instagram, it's a no for them immediately. It's not worth investing in.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that our social media has helped the stories book to move, but we don't. This is news to me. The issue about TikTok. So
yeah. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen. I bought so many books from TikTok. I personally, and you can see I buy a lot of books.
Yeah.
And I personally, pulled out my credit card and I bought a book because I saw the review on TikTok. To the degree that
I haven't even seen it. I haven't even seen a TikTok review, so I'm really out of it.
Yeah, and then if you go to, at least in the US, if you go to Barnes and Nobles and Books A Million and others, there's a whole section called Book Talk, where they dedicating sales of books for the books that are viral on TikTok. So if you now go to Barnes and Noble here in my city, there's a Book Talk section, and it's all the books that are viral on TikTok. So that is what's happening now. That it's a viral video of a book on TikTok is worth more than New York Times book review. Ironically.
Okay, well, I'm going to meet the editor of the New York Times book review tomorrow in London.
Really? Okay.
Coincidentally, okay. But I'm going to say, you know what? Don't review my book. It's not going to help any at all. So it really doesn't matter. Is that what I should?
No, it's the more the merrier. I'm just saying that you're going to get the New York, the people who read the New York Times to read your book. But I'm just saying that's a niche market. If you want to be more mainstream, TikTok is the place. Yeah. So
then this is news to me, Natasha. I had to come on your podcast to find out about this. My goodness.
But okay. So Jordan, what do you have plans for you in the future? My understanding is you're working on your own novel, correct?
Yes. Well, first of all, I have an agent, and I basically pitched her 2 nonfiction books. one of which is almost finished. It's a collection of my interviews with novelists over the years.
Okay, that's nice.
And there are, I don't know, 36 novelists of all different kinds of, ethnic backgrounds. So that book is almost finished. And the other one I pitched her is called what's it called? They Kill Writers, Don't They? It's a book that's about the history of regimes that kill writers and why they did it. And it includes some very well-known names, but also names of writers that people may not have been aware of. I already have a chapter from that book coming out in the fall in another anthology. So I'm going to finish those first, and then I'm going to go back to working on my fiction.
Oh, wow. This is great. How did you find your agent? Because I talked to a lot of authors, inspiring authors there, and landing an agent is pretty difficult. Many of them, query for years and nothing. So how did you find yours?
Well, quite simply, I was recommended by one of her clients.
Okay.
One of her clients is someone I know who knows the work I do, and he recommended me to her. And then she and I, we exchanged some emails, and we had a meeting of the minds when we met. So online, that is. And so it was really word of mouth.
Oh, this is great. Okay, so Jordan, before we conclude, what pitching tips would you give for someone who wants to be published in the Marcus Review?
Well, actually, first I want to share with you a trick that I learned when I was a young wannabe writer that was taught to me by a journalism professor. He said, if you don't have anything published yet or anything important published, you should find a really good angle, a story that you want to do, and pitch the subject and the editor at the same time. And so I'll give you an example of how that worked. There was a famous writer coming to town when I lived in Paris years ago. And so the writer's name was John Fowles. He wrote The French Lieutenant's Woman, The Magus, and other books. And I contacted the Herald Tribune, which was the big paper in English in Paris, and said, I'm interviewing this writer, John Fowles. Are you interested in the profile? And they said yes. And I contacted the writers people at the British Institute and said, I'm from the Herald Tribune. I want to do a story with you, Mr. Fowles. And he said yes. So you kind of you play one against the other to be able to break in. Yeah. And as far as pitching tips for the Marcus Review, just write a good query so that the editors understand exactly what you're proposing. Make it clear. Don't make us try to figure out what you're talking about. Sometimes people say, oh, I might go see this movie, or do you want a review of it? I don't know the movie. So I'm like, who are you? What do you want? No, I don't have time for that. You have to make it very clear in your query exactly what it is that you're proposing, and also why you're the person to write it. You have to have some justification for why you should write XYZ story.
Do you think only Arab writers should write Arab stories?
No, I think writers are writers, like actors are actors. And obviously, when you have direct experience, you're much more convincing in your work. But I think anybody can write about anything as long as they do the work and, they connect with the readers. I don't believe in this politically correct. Well, I'm Moroccan and French, so I can only write about Moroccan and French subjects. And you're Jordanian, so don't dare write about any Arab from any other country except Jordan. I mean, it's just nonsense.
Well, any final thoughts before we conclude? Yeah, of course. All opinions matter.
Yes,
it's a safe space here at this podcast. So
all opinions matter. Yeah, all opinions matter, and everyone has an opinion. But you know what they say about that, right?
What?
No, I want to keep this clean, so I'm not going to go there. But
right, okay.
I appreciate talking with you, and I look forward to seeing your next submission, and hopefully your stories will come out in book form next year or the year after.
Oh, thank you. And for anyone who's
hurry up and finish that collection.
Yeah, I will. Just give me. I'll be done with the short story for you in, like I say, 5 days. I promise. But okay, so before we conclude, how can people reach you? Jordan, what's the best way to reach you?
Jordan at themarcaz.org.
Great. Thank you very much for joining me today, Jordan. And for anyone who is listening or watching, thank you for joining us today for another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. And until we meet again. Thank you for tuning in to Read and Write with Natasha. I'm your host, Natasha Tynes. If today's episode inspired you in any way, please take the time to review the podcast. Remember to subscribe and share this podcast with fellow book lovers. Until next time, happy reading, happy writing.